extracts from the document. If the document is an interview that they have conducted, the extracts go straight into the master file. So what they will be doing is building the backbone of the story while they are doing research. What they must avoid at all costs is first doing the research and piling it up and then going through it all again, trying to find the story. That is a hopeless way to work. Okay, it is very inefficient and it adds a lot of time to the work process. They are gathering the material, archiving it, and putting it in order as they are collecting it, which means that ideally every day they will spend 15 minutes to a half hour doing nothing but looking at their research and getting it in order. This is what professionals do. Every day professionals organize their material. Okay, I know this because we did an anthology of stories, investigative stories, that were published by UNESCO. The anthology was published in 2012. It's called the Global Investigative Journalism Casebook. And there were 20 plus contributors to that casebook. And I asked every one of them how they did the stories. Okay? They gave us their working methods, and I particularly asked them, how do you organize your work? And every one of them said, I organize it every day. Every day they add something new, they organize it. Okay, let me see if I can show you an example of a master file. And I apologize for this delay. People have been coming in and out of the room at different rates today. So, does anyone have questions about the procedure that I have just set out for you? Yes, Bahija.
Can you put the translator? Thank you. كيف يمكن مساعدة الطالب في تجاوز تنظيم المعطيات حسب التسلسل الزمني إلى التسلسل المنطقي لصياغة التحقيق؟
No, I didn't understand it. Can you say it in a different way or say it in French?
Comment je peux aider les étudiants à partir de l'organisation du timeline selon des dates précises à une organisation logique de l'enquête? En premier lieu, pour être organisé, on est censé organiser les données qu'on a selon des dates bien précises.
Ouais.
Et par la suite, on va les aider à les organiser plus ou moins sous la forme finale, selon des thématiques bien déterminées. Comment on peut les aider à faire ça?
On va discuter ça en détail. Ok, je crois que c'est demain. Je vais juste jeter un coup d'œil rapide sur mon okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to answer that in detail, I believe, tomorrow. Hang on, I'm going to check this now to be sure. Yes, tomorrow morning, tomorrow morning we will be looking at interviews first, interviewing techniques in the morning, and then later in the morning, we will start to get into how to organize the narratives. We'll look at basic narrative structures. You can give your students templates. This is described in the ARIJ manual. There's a chapter on writing the investigations in the ARIJ manual. Okay, but we're going to go through it together as well. I can assure you that, you know, they don't have to invent a structure. Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to edit the master file, and that becomes the structure. And I'm going to show you how to edit it. Okay, how to move the stuff around so that it makes sense. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, good. Don't worry about it. We're not leaving that aside. Yes?
أعتقد هناك فرق ما بين الشكل النهائي الذي يتعلق بزاوية المعالجة التي يتبناها الصحفي في نهاية المطاف، وتنظيم العمل الذي يرتبط بالمهمات التي يجب أن يقوم بها. وهناك طرق متعددة، إما أن يأخذ الزاوية الكرونولوجية، وإما الزاوية الموضوعاتية، أو الجوانب السهلة والجوانب الصعبة، ويقوم بالعمل على ذلك. وفي الأخير فتظهر له زاوية المعالجة التي يمكن أن تكون له ذات فائدة أقوى.
Hopefully. They don't always. Okay? I will tell you something. It is much easier for students to do good research than to do good writing. Many of them have never done an extended story. I generally tell them that I don't want a story that is longer than 8 pages, because I've learned that very few of them are capable of doing a good story that's longer than that. Okay, and it forces them to make a selection in their material. But it doesn't really matter whether they organize the master file as a village or as a timeline. Okay, I'm going to show you a master file that was composed of this was composed for a case study. My ugly head is in the way. It's an ugly head. I'm going to hide it. I'm going to hide it. Okay, let's see if I can get out of the way. This looks better, doesn't it? Now my ugly head is not in the way. Please. Okay. So this is an extract from a master file that was done of a story about a corporate launch. Okay? JB is one of the people in the story, Jenny Bierman. Okay? And you'll notice that what's up there is an extended quote from an interview. She gives me a number of things. You'll see here, what the hell? Okay. So here is an extended quote. You see the date, 0405. That means 4th of May. Okay, I didn't put the year because I was writing the story in the same year. Okay, so I knew this had all when this had happened. Okay, she's telling us about what happened in the room. Okay, she's giving us a scene, and you know, one of the mistakes students make is they try and say everything themselves. If you have extended quotes, sometimes people will tell the story for you. And usually the people who were there know what happened better than you do. Okay? So we have these different quotes. Okay? Here you see N. It means a note. Because what happens is, as you are entering the material in the master file, you get ideas. So to distinguish your own ideas from the source material, I simply put in a sign that doesn't occur naturally in any language, and with an exclamation point is in no language that I know of. And that means when I do a search for my notes, for my ideas, I find them all together. Do you see what I'm saying, Nora? Yeah, this is a searchable database. Your students are creating a database of the material they have gathered, and then they will mine, edit, and shape that database. They may think the databases are just names, numbers, statistics. No. Any organized archive is a database. Okay, so This is an extremely important technique because what it means is that whenever they work on a story, for the rest of their lives, they can access their data about that story. They will be able to use the same material again and to search it. Okay? So this is just a note. I put it in capitals so it would leap out at me. And I captured my idea. So now I've said that. We go on with her quotes. Okay? Here's a question I asked her. She gives me the names of the people who were there. So I mark down all of these names because they're people in my village. And maybe later I will go back and profile them. In fact, I did for several. Okay? Here's a question. I said, what was the role of Vivienne? She was the head of the company. Okay? And then she told me, she said, there was a cartoon from the meeting, an image, okay, a sketch. They had this very important meeting, which was pivotal in the story. These were the people who were there, so I've documented the people who were there. And now she tells me, we made an image of the discussion that had big meaning for everybody. So I said immediately, where can I get the image? She sent it to me, and I put it in the file. Now notice what's happening here. As I'm collecting the material, I'm putting it all in one place. Because one of the things that happens when people search for their own material is they lose time. Where did I put that? Oh, is it under here? Oh, maybe it's under here. You know, you lose an incredible amount of time looking for stuff. So, of course, students will, have their own ways of keeping source documents. But it makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense to take the material you will use and put it in one file. So then you have the whole story under your eyes. And if you have to take a couple days off from it, when you come back to it, it's still there. And you can pick up where you left off. Okay? Now we've changed to another person who is speaking. Carol Battershell, another character in the story. Now I could have inserted photographs of these people into the file as well, if I took photographs of them. If I had sound recordings, I could insert that into the file. So I click on the link and I get a sound recording. I can also put in links to PDF files that are online or in my hard drive. So I have the source documents to consult as well. But usually what I will do is I will copy a passage out of a PDF or a Word document and just insert it directly into the file. So she is telling me these things, okay, the next events that happened after this big meeting. Now they are looking forward to delivering 2 reports to the big boss of the company in July. So you'll notice I made that bold, okay? She was an extremely good source, etc. Okay? It came down to a 1-page strategy paper. And here is the excerpt from the strategy paper. This is it. BP Alternative Energy. This document is intended to provide the background and context for group leadership, for use, etc. Okay? So you see the principle, right? It's really not very complicated. Do you think you could explain this to somebody? You think you could? You have explained this to somebody. Okay? What did they say?
اشتغلت به هذه السنة مع طلبة الماجستير في الصحافة الاستقصائية. كان من طلبة 2 اللي كانوا حقيقة يتبعوا في الكورس. مع انتهاء الفترة كانوا جاهزين للنشر تقريبا. التحقيق شبه مكتمل، فقط على إعادة ترتيب العناصر فقط. كانت الصياغة والعناصر محطوطة، يعني يساعد جدا الماستر فايل، يساعد يعني بالذات، يساعد في انك انت تبني القصة وانت تلم في المعلومات، يعني تجمع المعلومات. يعني ان نفكر اني انا كيف ابني القصة وانا بصدد البحث عن المعلومة.
Okay. How did you do it? While Bahija is coming up, I just want to make a couple of points. Sometimes students will cheat on this assignment. What they will do is they will wait until the last minute, and then they will take some sources. They'll give you a list of internet sites or a list of documents, and they'll pretend to have done some work and some thinking. You know, one way to get around this is that when they are working on an investigation, you say to them, I want to see your master file every week. Bring me a report every week. Now, let me be very clear about this. This is professional practice. In professional work, editors look at their reporters' progress reports at least weekly. At the Boston Globe, when they have the Spotlight team, you know, the one they made the movie about, which your students should watch. Spotlight is a great movie about investigation, probably the best ever made. At Spotlight, they have daily reports. The reporter writes a daily memo saying what they learned, along with the sources and any relevant interview extracts. And those daily reports become the basis of the story. Okay? There are different ways to do it, but everybody has a way that fulfills those basic functions of keeping track of the material, keeping it in order, and having it ready to reuse in the story. Okay? Yes.
المثال كان أحد الطلبة يشتغل على الاستيلاء على الملك العمومي البحري في سواحل سيدي علي المكي في بنزرت. هذه المنطقة فيها خاصية في الري الطبيعي نادرة في العالم. وقت اللي بدينا كانت الفرضية متنفذون يستولون على الملك العمومي البحري وسط تخاذل وكالة حماية الشريط الساحلي ووكالة وكالة الشريط الساحلي على تخاذلها في إنفاذ القوانين. حددنا قرية المصادر اللي كانت متنوعة. من بعد عملنا التايم لاين اللي كان كل ما نحصل على معلومة ناخذها نضع التاريخ، المحتوى اللي يتماشى مع الفرضية اللي قدمتها between quotation، ونكمل وناخذ الجزء متاعها نعمل يعني حتى إن كان ثم لينك مباشر يهزني نعمل هايبر لينك، معناتها هايبر لينك بالعربية الرابط مع إضافة الرابط إن وجد، إن كان من وثيقة أضع مرجع الوثيقة، وهكذا من القديم رجعنا للظاهرة متى بدأت. الاعتداء على الملك العمومي البحري في سيدي علي المكي بدأ قبل الثورة في سنة 2006، لكن عمل طفرة بعد الثورة لأنه في ظل تضاعف دور الدولة المؤسسات الدولة أصبحت عاجزة على إنفاذ القانون. الطفرة صارت من بعد، حددنا من هم المتنفذون، حصلنا على قائمة في الناس الذين هم مخالفون للقانون وتم رفع مخالفات فيهم. قمنا بجمع كل المنظومة القانونية المنظمة للانتصاب بالحذو من الملك العمومي البحري، والتي تمنع الانتصاب في الملك العمومي البحري وما يترتب عنها من عقوبات، ورتبناها تاريخيا أيضا. أصبح عندنا البروسيس من الباسي، يعني من الماضي، يعني أصل القصة، إلى المستقبل. الفرضية متاعنا كانت في أمامون تي لهنا عندنا، لأنه الأصل لهنا كانت فما ديزانتيسيدون بداية، لكن أنا كانت عندي الطفرة من 2011 مع الثورة. هنا عندي تقريبا الطفرة في الاستيلاء على الملك العمومي البحري. هذا ترتيب زمني، راهو مازلت نحكي على ترتيب زمني. ولهنا حكينا على تبعاته، ولهنا رجعنا اصلا للمسببات تاريخيا، ما الذي اسهم في ايجاد هذه الظاهره؟ ساهم بلوتو في انتشار ظاهرة الاستيلاء على أصبحت بالشكل هذا، بالطريقة هذه عندي القصة أوضح، نقرأ فيها تسلسل زمني. وقت اللي أنا جيت باش نخدم معاه الصياغة النهائية كانت عندي الأشياء مضمنة، يعني هي فقط تواريخ، التاريخ الأول، التاريخ الثاني، التاريخ الثالث، معناتها كلها تواريخ. وقت اللي أنا اخترت المخطط متاع التحقيق أصبحت ناخذ الأجزاء ونحطها، لأني أنا خدمته اوريدي على وورد، خدمته على دوكيمنت وورد، أصبح سهلا إنك أنت تعمل اجوستمون متاع الستوري.
Stay with the timeline for the moment.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
Great. Thanks. That was great. Okay. All right. Here's another one. Here you see the hypothesis. This is about the guy who was convicted in London for stealing $3 billion from Barclays. Now I'm just going to run down here. You don't have to look at everything that's in here. You notice I start with the hypothesis, and when I made my hypothesis, I discovered that somebody else had thought of the same thing at the Guardian. So what I want you to notice here is I have the quote from the Guardian, and then here I have the site for the story, so that when I do my fact checking, I have the source under my eyes. I have a quote. This was Linda Trevino, who's an expert on organizational behavior. She studies cheating in organizations, when people break the law in organizations. So I did an interview with her in order to understand what can go wrong. You notice I have the interview date at the bottom of the page. So if a lawyer says to me, when did you talk to this woman? I can say June 30th, 2014. Okay? Now, certain things happen when you're doing a timeline. Okay? One of them is that parts of the timeline are denser than others. Now, my hypothesis was that this guy was not a criminal, but he was working in a criminal organization. He was working in an organization that pushed him to criminal acts. So I went back 10 years before to see if UBS had been involved in any criminal acts. 1997, they are caught, executives of the bank, this bank UBS, are caught burning records of Jewish property from the Holocaust period that they had stolen. They're destroying the records of stolen property. The next year, they pay out a plus $1.25 billion settlement. In 2004, they're fined $100 million for violating the U.S. embargo on Iran, and so on. Throughout the timeline, these guys are being convicted of crimes. Okay? And then in 2006, our man, the hero of the story, the guy who goes to jail, joins the company. And he appears at different times, okay? Another scandal where UBS is arrested by the US, okay? And then I found this delightful little quote, okay? There had been another employee of a big bank arrested on the same charges as my hero in 2007 in Paris. And after he was arrested in London, authorities went to the banks and said, could that happen here? And they said, no. So it was a hilariously ironic point. I put it in the story. Okay? Here I just, I'm pulling stuff off the databases to have the outlines of the thing. I get a report, an expert report, prepared at demand of the board. That was just a find from a document. It's an inside document from UBS that I found through internet search, where this guy is inside the bank. He has access to all their internal records, and he's saying what he found. And he's explaining how they got caught in so many criminal operations. So, I have an impeccable source who I cannot be sued for quoting because he was hired by the bank. And that goes in the timeline as well. Just another point here, okay? In this early part of the story, the quotes tend to be very long. But what you will see is that as we get closer to the dates, the events come faster. This is characteristic of crime stories. Okay, as you get closer to the moment of the crime, more things start happening. You can see it here, okay? You can see the first dates starting to get more dense. So the entries are shorter, but the dates are closer. Okay, this file runs, God, I don't know how long. I can't tell on MacBook because I'm a Windows guy. But I think this file is like 60 pages long. The final story was 20 pages long. So I have 3 or 4 times more material than I can use, which is good. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to say next. I can worry about what I'm not going to say next. And, we will go into how this is restructured into the story in the end. Chronology is simpler than a village for me. Everyone has a natural preference. I have a colleague named Mark Shapiro who does everything spatially. He is like a man going from one room in a house to the next room, to the next room, to the next room. In every room, he meets different people, and something different happens, and then he moves to the next set. This is a classic narrative technique. It's found in the Odyssey. English novelists of the 19th century used it. And, it's a very powerful technique, but it's not my preference. I tend to think of things sequentially. I like cause and effect. Okay, I'm very much into that. And, temporal sequences will do this. So don't worry about whether your students prefer one or the other. Just concentrate on making sure that when they use one or the other, they understand what's happening in their own reporting. That creating the file actually creates clarity for them. Because otherwise they're wasting your time first. Okay, frankly, your time may be more valuable than theirs. Because not only because you have a lot of professional demands on you, but because you are responsible to the whole class. If someone takes up a huge amount of your time because you can't understand what the hell they are doing, then, you know, you have to let them know that. You have to force them to get this right. If they won't be forced, flunk them. It's easy for me to say that. I have flunked exactly one student in my life, and it was a student who didn't do anything. I'm a notoriously soft grader, but I'm very hard on them in class. I tell them, I want this. I tell you to do something, you do it. Can you do that with your students? Yes? Great. Do you enjoy it? Oh, good. Yes, they need hard but just masters. Hard but fair masters. Okay. So that's the master file technique. Try creating your own the next time you write a scholarly paper or any kind of article. Some of you may be doing something similar already. If it's similar and it meets the criteria, okay, remember the criteria. The criteria are archive, organize, clarify, and structure. The materials that go in there are documents, interviews, and insights. Documents that capture what's happening, interviews where people talk to you about what you're finding, and insights, which is where the material operates on you and you say, that's what it means. Okay, those are very important moments in any investigation. Archive, organize, clarify, and structure. Yes.
Can I add 2 points?
Please.
What about backup? What do they advise students about backup? And second, if they have audio or video recording, what should they do with this?
Okay. First of all, never just one copy of anything. Are there actually students who don't know that? Jesus. Okay. I keep 3 copies of everything. 1 copy on my computer. 1 copy on Dropbox. 1 copy on a hard drive that I make from the computer. When I work on a text or a master file, I save it to Dropbox and to my computer every half hour. Okay, minimum. Okay, I mean, the reason I do this is that once I was working on a project under a very tight deadline, and it was a very hot day, and my computer got hot. I had made 5 copies of a key text that I was working on. 4 of them were corrupted. When I got to the 4th one and it was corrupted, I started screaming, literally. Lucky for me, the 5th one was okay. Okay, always multiple copies. 1 in the cloud, 1 on the computer, 1 on a hard drive. Okay, and if they're not going to make multiple copies, they're just fools. You know, you can lose your data. So now I'm working on this investigation with Greenpeace. And I have 2 data sets, 1 on Dropbox, actually 2 on Dropbox, 1 I share with my team and 1 I keep for my own work. Okay, with different files containing source documents. And then I extract the documents and put them in my master files. And the master files are copied in multiple locations. Yes.
ربما توضيح المنصة دروب بوكس للذين ليس لهم فكرة عن هذه النوعية من المنصات وذكر منصات
Google Drive.
أي.
Google Drive. They open a Google account and they get onto Google Drive. Google Drive is also becoming the standard tool for group collaboration in investigative journalism because it's an encrypted platform. Google encrypts it. You know, so people go on Google Drive and download the documents. It's not completely secure, but it's secure enough for most purposes. Okay? So, you know, and Google gives you how much space on Google Drive? 100 megabytes? 10 megabytes? I don't know. No, gigabytes. How much is it, 10 gigabytes? It's nothing. But, you know, I have a professional account on Dropbox. It costs me $99 a year, about 80 euros. And, you know, I have a terabyte of storage. You know, there's no ideal solution. But I do need to be access files while I'm moving. So Dropbox is one solution. There are others. It's worth discussing this with your students, by the way. If they do not function as professionals in terms of storage, they're dead. They're hopeless. Okay? If they're hopeless, you must drown them like kittens. Or wake them up. You know, they shouldn't be playing with this stuff. If they can lose all of their time. You know, that's tragic. Okay. Other comments, questions?
على ما أعلم هناك منصة أخرى يمكن استعمالها وهي اسمها إلى جانب الدروب بوكس اسمها ميديا فاير.
There are many.
Yeah.
There is also the document cloud, which many journalists like. The document cloud. Okay, it's an encrypted archive on internet. You know, I haven't used it. Some of my colleagues like it a lot. But honestly, when I work in group projects with people, they say Dropbox or Google Drive. Okay, that's what people like to use. And if we're transferring voluminous files, I use WeTransfer. I don't know if it's secure, but you know, it's practical and easy and free. Okay. We have half an hour left today. Have I said enough about the master file? Do people understand this? Is there any issue? Do you want to know more about it or less? More or less? It's too late for less. Do you want to know more about this? Okay, by the way, you asked about audio or video files. You can put them on Dropbox or your computer and put a link to them. Okay, and then just call them down by clicking on the link. And, you know, I suggest, you know, when people give me articles and when I do them, as you saw, I footnote the articles, and very often I'll embed a link to the original document so that if someone wants to check a quote or a fact, they just click on it and the document comes up. Okay, it's so much easier these days than it was when I was starting out. God almighty, you know, working with 5,000 pieces of paper. Help. All right. Now, ideas for students. We're going to be giving them all these wonderful techniques, but what are they going to work on? Where will the stories come from? So where do stories come from? How do you find out about investigations? Things that can be investigated. Give me an idea. I want to do an investigation. I've never done an investigation. Tell me how I'm going to do an investigation. Where am I going to start? Pardon me?
Try to find this إيجاد الموضوع أولا.
We have to find a topic. So give me one idea to find a topic.
المواضيع يمكن إيجادها في بقايا الأحداث الآنية. One idea of the subject that I will try to.
No, it doesn't have to be a specific subject. Just tell me one way you can find an idea.
في بقايا الأخبار اليومية.
Tell me how to find a subject in the daily news.
مثلا في فيضانات عندما تحدث فيضانات في دولة ما تمر المياه لكن يبقى الأثر. أوكي. عندما تحدث فيضانات في دولة ما يعني نكتشف إنه مثلا البنية التحتية غير قادرة على استيعاب بعض الأمطار القليلة في ظرف زمني.
Okay. Okay. So in professional terms, we call this leftovers. Okay. Does everyone know what leftovers are? It's when You serve a big meal and there's so much food that people can't eat it. So you put the rest in the refrigerator. And then somebody comes by the next day and takes the food and eats it. That's leftovers. Leftovers is what remains after a big meal. So, the principle in journalism is this. News reporters come through and do a story, but they don't go to the end of it. So something is left over that you can take. You can find a story that's left over. I saw one such story. I taught in Casablanca a number of years ago. So I saw this story. Okay? A woman, a divorced woman, remarried a much older man. Okay? And one night, he came home drunk, and with the help of her 15-year-old son, she poured gasoline over him and set him on fire. You look shocked, Samir. Has anyone ever wanted to do that to you, Samir? Have you been bad to the women in your life? Okay. So, she sets fire to the guy. So the newspaper quoted the police as saying, "What a monster this woman is." The newspaper left it at that. This woman is a monster. She will be punished. She set fire to her husband. Now, let's come up with a hypothesis for investigation from this, because that was the end of the story, at least while I was in Morocco. A monster has been arrested. A woman who set fire to her husband. Okay. What's the first question you have about this story? Why what? Why would a woman set fire to her husband? How many times have you ever heard of that happening in your life? How many women have you heard of who poured gasoline over their husband and set him on fire? First time for me too. I thought, what? Maybe she is a monster. Okay. So, I ask my question again. Why did she set fire to her husband? Our first hypothesis is, she is a monster. What's an alternative hypothesis? Pardon me? He is the monster.
هناك دوافع. ما هي الدوافع؟
Okay, like? Okay, what other motives could there be? We have already said one hypothesis is he is a monster. A second hypothesis would be what? I know. She could get money from him. She had an insurance policy on him, and to make sure she collected the insurance, she tried to set fire to the house, but she missed it and set fire to him. I'm kidding, but it's a possibility. Yes.
يعني الفرضية الثانية قد تكون كانت بصدد الدفاع عن نفسها. يعني
Maybe it was self-defense. Maybe he is a monster and she had to set fire to him to save herself. Now, there's a very interesting detail that was reported in the newspaper. Okay? Her son brought the gasoline. Her 15-year-old son brought the gasoline to the house. What does that suggest to you? What is your hypothesis? It was a plan. Certainly it was a plan. But let me ask you, what are you thinking, Hannah?
ربما لأنه يسيء معاملتها هي وابنها. نوع من رد الفعل.
Yes, he is treating her and the son in such a way that either the son is trying to defend the mother or he's trying to defend both of them. Okay, now let's develop this a little further. Okay, is this story starting to sound interesting? Okay. I mean, to me the story is interesting from the moment she sets fire to the guy because it's so rare. I've never heard of this before. Okay, but now when we say, why did she set fire to him? It's taken us 5 minutes to say, maybe something was going on here. So let me ask you a series of questions, okay? How are divorced women regarded in Morocco? I'm asking you, Ahmed and Mohammed. How are divorced women regarded in Morocco?
النظرة النمطية هي سلبية جدا، ولكن هناك تحول الآن.
Okay, but this was 6 years ago, so it was very negative. Okay, so this woman starts out with a bad reputation. Do men in Morocco beat their wives? Do some men in Morocco beat their wives? Sure?
نعم، هذا جزء من الإرث الاجتماعي، حتى هو فيه تحول.
Okay, but this was 6 years ago, so maybe this guy was beating his wife.
100 سنة الأخيرة أو أكثر.
Pardon me? Okay, probably longer than that if I judge by the U.S. People beat women in the U.S. too. People beat women everywhere. We're trying to get over it, but it takes a long time. Now, okay, so our hypothesis is that the guy was a monster. He comes home drunk. Let's say he was beating his wife. Now let's ask something else. This is a popular neighborhood in Morocco, a poor neighborhood. If he was beating his wife, would other people hear them? If he was beating his wife, would other people be aware? Okay, probably. So let's make that our hypothesis. He was beating his wife and the whole neighborhood knew it. Okay? Now, what's our next question? If the whole neighborhood knew it, what? What does that mean?
ما هو رأي السكان أو الساكنة حول ذلك الجيران؟ وما هو سلوكهم؟
Yes, what did they do? What did they do to stop it? Did they do anything? Now let me ask you something else. This goes for all the countries here, okay? A woman goes to the police and says, my husband beats me up. What will the police do? I'm asking you, what will the police do?
We ask you to come to the police station.
And then? Please use the microphone.
سوف تستدعي الشرطة إلى المقر لاستنطاقه بشأن القضية، وستطلب أولا من المرأة شهادة طبية بأنه ضربها.
Okay.
لكن هذا في حالة ما.
Let us say as an assumption this did not happen in this case. Then what is our conclusion?
قد لا يقع هذا كثيرا، لأن في الأوساط التقليدية فإن المرأة تعتبر أنه من العيب أن تذهب إلى الشرطة للشكاية برجلها، وقد تتحمل كثيرا وكثيرا، ولكنها في اللحظة الأخيرة قد تنفجر.
Okay, so our hypothesis now is she asked the neighbors for help and nobody said they would help her. She asked the police for help and nobody said they would help her, or she was scared to go to the police. So now look at this. A front page story has appeared in the newspapers that says a monster has burned her husband alive. All they have done is create publicity for our investigation. And our investigation is the husband was the monster. And this woman is a symbol of the battered women who can't protect themselves, to such a point that her son was willing to throw his life away to burn this man alive. That's the story. So this is leftovers. Somebody publishes a big story, but it's not the real story. And you see through what has been published and you get the real story. Okay? That's leftovers. Somebody else tell me a good source of stories. We need another source. There are three main ones. Okay? The first one is leftovers. A second would be what? And you can do this exercise with your students. You will say to them, look at the newspaper and tell me something that looks like leftovers. Okay? And you will do it with the other two things as well. Yes.
المصدر الثاني هو القضايا التي تطرح عندما يقوم الصحفي بمقابلات أو بريبورتاجات أو بمعالجة بعض القضايا وتبرز له بعض الحقائق التي ليس متأكدا منها ولكنها تفتح مسارات للتحقيق وقد يطرحها في هيئة تحرير ويكلف فريقا آخر القيام بذلك لأن لم تكن مهمته أن يقوم بالتحقيق بل بريبورتاج أو حوار.
Wait, you're getting ahead of yourself. The first thing you said was great. Okay? Yes. Sometimes someone tells you something. That's what it is. It's called word of mouth. You know, from your lips to God's ear. Someone tells you something, and this something may or may not be true, but you can check it out. Okay? Students love this. Students are always, saying, oh, somebody told me this. Okay, yes. And what's the third thing?
مصدر آخر سينعقد في المغرب مثلا مؤتمر مهم بشأن البيئة. كان هناك مؤتمر بشأن البيئة كوب 23. هذا المؤتمر استوحى لي موضوع عن إعادة تكرير الأزبال في المغرب أو مشكل البلاستيك الذي يلوث الطبيعة. وأقوم بانفستيجيشن عليه.
I would consider that word of mouth. You've heard something and then you go to see if it's true.
No, سوف يكون هناك حدث مؤتمر سينعقد عندنا في المغرب.
Yes, I understand, but you're still hearing it from someone else. When the starting point is something someone else told you, that's word of mouth. Okay? Or it could be an individual who comes up to you and says, I have a secret to tell you. Or it could be just something you overhear in another conversation. But these are all forms of word of mouth. Okay? It's someone communicating to you. Yes.
يمكن الاعتماد في إيجاد مواضيع التحقيقات على.
Let someone else contribute the third one, Bahija. Okay.
هناك من فضلك الملاحظات الشخصية.
No, wait. No, Mohammed. I want someone else to do the work. You're doing too much work for people. You're making them lazy.
لا أي فكرة أخرى.
I know, but you're making them lazy. You're doing all the work for them. You can't do that.
الملاحظات الشخصية.
No, stop. I want someone else. What is a third way that we can get story ideas? Yes.
طبعا إلى جانب الجهد الشخصي من الأستاذ والطلاب يمكن أيضا الاستعانة بأفكار يعني لتحقيقات استقصائية مطروحة سابقا من خلال زي ما ذكرت الأستاذ رنا في الصباح. من المهم جدا أن نركز داخل الجامعة وأيضا يعني تحقيقات منشورة ممكن إعادتها على المستوى المحلي يعني داخل ليبيا من دول أخرى وكذا.
Yes, it's a great way to work. It's a great way to work. You look at an investigation that was done in one place and you do it in another. And by the way, this is increasingly the way that international reporting teams work. We just did an investigation in Europe that was replicated in 8 different countries. We just ran the same method in 8 different countries to see what we found. We came up with 8 different stories, but we used the same method. So yes, you can, and we began from an investigation that was done in Germany. We said we're going to do that in 8 countries. So this is a perfect way to work. Okay? You already know how it came out someplace else, and you apply it in your own country. For example, the fraudulent school story can be done anywhere. There are fraudulent schools everywhere. I was walking down the street here, and I saw a bunch of schools that looked like, ridiculous operations. They take people's money for what? There must be some in Libya. Probably English language schools where people can't speak English. for example, or computer schools where people don't know how to use computers. This happens everywhere now. Okay, but there's still another way you can do it. Thank you for that suggestion, Samir. There's still another way you can do it. What would that way be? Does anyone have an idea? You're doing all the work, Bahija. You can't do all the work. Okay. Who else has an idea? Yes, Sandra. Personal observation. So I'll tell you a story about an investigation that began with personal observation. Okay? There's a great reporter in Belgium named Chris de Stoop. Okay? And Chris de Stoop has a brother who's a farmer. And on his brother's coffee table was a magazine for farmers. Nobody wants to marry farmers anymore. Nobody wants to marry a farmer. They work too hard. They don't have a lot of money. They smell bad. Let them lie down with the cattle. You know, we don't want to marry this guy. So, the magazine on his farmer brother's coffee table had advertising in it for brides from Asia. This is in Belgium. Asian women want to marry you. So this broke Chris de Stoop's leg. He said, women are crossing borders. The following week, he's walking down the street in Brussels where he lives, and he notices that in the prostitution district, where the previous week all the women were white, has suddenly become a city of black women. In 1 week, all the prostitutes changed from white to black. Something was out of place in the environment, and this is what he noticed. Personal observation is almost always when something doesn't fit. Okay, one of my students who actually came into the class, I asked everybody in the class in the first session, why do you want to do investigative journalism? And she said, I don't want to do investigative journalism. It's a required course. I would rather not be here. And I said, well, just stick around. Maybe we'll have some fun after all. And she is a devout Catholic. Okay? And she was going home one night, and she found a Catholic church where the bishop was blessing dogs. The bishop was blessing dogs, and she found out that he was selling the blessings. And then she found out he was a fake bishop. And then she found out he'd been arrested for fraud. So, you know, I mean, the whole story came from her being a devout Catholic and knowing that bishops in the Catholic Church do not bless dogs. Something was wrong. Just like when all the prostitutes in Brussels become black and a week before they were white, something is happening. What? In this case, it was organized crime. Okay, that's the only possible explanation. And that was the hypothesis he proved. Okay, so replicate an investigation. Great idea for students. Replicate marriage investigation. Why not? Okay, do it in your own country. See if it'll work. In fact, by the way, the marriage investigation that won the Shining Light Award, not to take anything away from marriage, but, you know, Paul Moreira had done a similar story in Afghanistan. Yeah, a couple of years earlier. It was the same thing, you know, aid money comes in to build schools. The minister builds a big house and the school is never built. You know, these things happen. Okay, I'm not saying you copied Paul. I'm just saying that good minds have the same ideas. Okay, but you can copy that. The second point is, the second way you get them is leftovers. Somebody puts out an idea, but they don't take it to the end. The third is, what was I saying, good God? Word of mouth. You hear something that inspires you. And the last one is personal observation. So you can give these out to your students as exercises instead of just saying to them, bring me a story idea, because they'll be panicked. They always panic when they have to come up with an idea. Say to them, let's look at the newspaper together. Everybody look at this newspaper and tell me if there's a story in there that could be investigated further. Before you do that, read the newspaper yourself. Okay? Read it that day to see if there's something. Okay? For the word of mouth, you may try sending them to a conference or something like that, where they may listen to things and come home with an idea for an investigation. For excuse me, I'm tired now. My God, I'm losing my mind. Word of mouth. What was the second one? Leftovers. We've done leftovers. We've done word of mouth. And the third one is for personal observation. Just ask them to walk around their neighborhood and see what changed. Yes.
What I use with them is just what interests you. So I ask them, what are you interested in? So sports, art, whatever. And we start a conversation. And from that, they start thinking. Because it is something they care about.
It sounds great to me. I mean, I always tell my students anyway, don't pick a subject that you are not personally interested in. If you don't care about it, don't do it. I'm sorry. I say to the students, if you're not interested in the subject, don't do it. Don't do it just because it's an idea. Do it because it matters to you. Yes.
Another technique I've used with the class to lead them to some personal observation is to think about their different roles in life, student, son, daughter, friend, and then think of issues or problems that they've seen somewhere in that. So, for example, as a sister, I have a brother who is self-employed, and so self-employed people in the U.S. have had problems with having health insurance. So then I could start with, okay, what were his problems with health insurance? So it just gives you some specific places to look for the personal observations.
Yes.
So that's it.
Yeah, it's a variation on the broken leg. If it's happening to you or to someone who's close to you, you're more sensitive to it. Yeah, you don't notice what you're not looking for. Okay. You've worked really hard today. You've been subjected to abuse from a very cruel master. I thank you for supporting it with such good humor. Everybody get a good night's rest. Tomorrow we're going to come back and see how you're going to teach these people to write. Okay? But what we're going to start off doing tomorrow morning is I'm going to ask you to walk in and tell us what you need that you haven't gotten yet. So that's your assignment for tonight. Think of one thing you need from this course that you have not yet gotten, and we'll see if we can fit it in this last day. Okay? Everybody agree? Okay, great.